So, a couple of days ago, well, not a couple of days ago, but about a week ago, I did a video. Well, not a a video, but before that, it was more of a typed up thing. Basically called "If I Was In," and basically what this "If I Was In" was about, which I actually printed out right here, was me just talking about, what I would do, or what I would do basically if I was in the shoes of some of the favorite artists on DeviantArt and other places that I follow, mainly because of the webcomics and stories and art that they do. And once again, much to my surprise, the DeviantArt upload got over 1,000 views with not even a week, but within almost 24 to 48 hours, which is a surprise. And I think it's mainly because of not only who I'm talking about, but mainly the subject matter as well. And again, this just shows me that, or proves to me actually, that this subject matter, this variety of subject matters, these tropes, if you will, are very popular with people nowadays, probably more so than they've ever been. And, the fact that I have a couple of people that have worked, that I mentioned in here, that have worked on these stories, compliment me, on what I said. I basically private message noted one of them, and they replied back thanking me. One of the others commented on it and thanked me. So, it's really it's really a big surprise, like I said, that this article, this essay, if you will, of me saying "If I Was In" has gotten so many views in a short amount of time. So I figured, as a follow-up to a video where I basically had the Microsoft Word voice, if you will, the dictate voice, or the read-along voice, do the video for me, read off what I said for me, I've decided I want to come on here and kind of do it myself, let you kind of hear it out of my voice as well. So with that said, let me get my what's my glasses here? That's not them. Here they are. Let me get one of my glasses, one of my pairs of glasses, that is, right here. A little dirty, if you will. Yeah, because the other ones have a lens missing. But let me use these, if you will, to read it off. But this is basically what I typed up. So just in case you guys didn't see the other one, which let me see if it's still on there. It probably is. The one thing about YouTube right now is it likes to be very repetitive on the homepage, especially during these premieres that you get scheduled like weeks in advance. I don't know why it does that. Hopefully they can fix that. But anyway though, I wanted to come on here and basically, like I said, do a bit of a follow-up, but from my own mouth, read off kind of what I typed up of "If I Was In," so you guys can not only see that I do type up stuff and read off it when it comes to videos, but also upload it to places like DeviantArt and places like that. But this is basically, like I said, a follow-up out of my words of what I typed up here. So, to quote what I said, talk on 4 story series from 4 different writers/artists on DeviantArt and Eka's portal. That's EKA, Eka's portal. And Eka's portal is another artistic site, but it's more mature, adult setting like, if you will. And we'll get into that throughout this. But anyway, moving on and continuing, I have 4 people I listed off. So it might be long, it may not be, so just brace yourselves here. The first person I want to talk about is Ari, It's ARY0901. And I'm talking about, because they're the first one I chose here, I'm talking about the Rhea and Ari story series. RE0901's Rhea and Rhea and Ari story series. Basically, they have a character named after themselves. And I continue on, and I quote, this is what I said on RE0901's Rhea and Ari story series, and I quote, "When I see and read these stories, I see stories that are not only long, and believe me, they are long, about almost 200 pages worth, but stories that can be as weird and crazier than any other story that is similar in tone." And when I'm talking about crazier and weird than any other story similar in tone, is despite the fact that RE0901 uses SFM 3D like technology, software if you will, to do some of these camera work, do some of these artistic comics if you will, that are like 200 pages or more. You know, a lot of these situations that she gets her characters in, or characters associated with her in, are nuts. So like, whoa, I never thought I'd see that, happening and stuff. Excuse me there. But continuing on, and I quote, I mean, when RE0901 puts Rhea and Ari into situations that even makes you, as a reader viewer, wonder what madness we're about to see, or guess what's going to happen next, it shows you that RE0901 is doing the job right. So in other words, when she puts her characters into situations to where, basically, makes you wonder what madness they're about to encounter, or, makes you wonder what's going to happen next to them, it shows that she's doing the right thing. She's going about it the right way. And continuing on, because at the end of these stories, you're still guessing as to what you just saw and read, or read and saw. And that is pretty much true with RE0901. At the end of her stories, you're like, okay, that was good and everything, but what did I just see? What the heck did I just read? If you know what I mean. Now, continuing more, and I quote, this is where the "If I Was In" title comes into play. Now, if I was in RE0901's shoes, the next step I would take with Rhea and Ari is the inanimate object route. The reason I would take this route is because, and I listed it off, 1, it's a bit easier to render with the software that RE0901 has, and pretty much in my opinion it is. 2, since in the story the girls get off on ultimate submission, why not go the inanimate object route? 3, it would allow for more possibilities, like the girls each having a turn at becoming the other's clothing, or bed, or dress, or whatever inanimate idea comes to mind. 4, and it would help keep things fresh, but still weird enough for the viewers and readers to enjoy. But overall, these are definitely stories you should check out over at RE0901's DeviantArt page. So basically, like I said, the RE0901 stories about their characters, Rhea, I should say, and Ari, a character named after herself. The stories that RE0901 does with them are just, bonkers all over the place. They're just like, I guess you could put it psychedelic-like, the very psychedelic-like, if you will. Like, you would have to really be on something. Like, you would have to have so much to drink, balance it out by the way, but so much to drink that you would have a trip, reading and seeing what RE0901 put together. Now, on to number 2. The number 2 person I have is Mr. Internet Man's Mystic Makeover series / webcomics. And of course I've talked about Mr. Internet Man on here before with Mystic Makeover. And this is what I said, and I quote, With these stories and webcomics, I see something different happen all the time. Whether it's Veronica slash Demonica having some fun by herself, which could go for about 6 to 12 pages, or it's the fun she is indeed having, ending with her splitting herself into 2 or 3 women, and the comic ending on them about to go hardcore LGBTQ on themselves. In other words, Veronica making out with herself. And that's one of the tropes or traits that he puts in there with his Veronica Demonica character in the past couple of years, if not past couple of months, that anytime Veronica becomes Demonica, usually she splits herself into a bunch of other women with their own individual personalities, still controlled by her in a way, but their own individual personalities, that basically ends up with them always making out with themselves, or at least teasing them going into that direction. One webcomic that he did was called Two of a Kind, and basically it ended with the 2 girls that she became, Veronica Demonica became, acknowledging that Veronica has such a wicked imagination to come up with them, which kind of emphasizes that Veronica is the one that's coming up with all these ideas, that basically they both agree to give her memories she's not going to forget. And it basically teases the fact that with the characters that she came up with out of their I guess you could say the latex devil suit and cat suits, that and they're completely naked, which that's all I'm going to say. It basically ends with the tease of them going hardcore LGBTQ. In other words, as I mentioned here, Veronica making out with herself. But continuing on, and I quote, and again, that's a trope or trait that usually has been in the story series webcomics over the past several years, if not months. But continuing on, and I quote, or it's her crossing over or bringing in a new female friend that either results in a fusion, mostly with the character Exotica Rebecca, which is another character that Mr. Internet Man created that has similar identical powers as Veronica Demonica, and that fusion becomes known as Zaya, or liquid play that causes an unexpected fusion, like with minor alterations Ruby Walker character. It always seems that there is something different when he creates these mystic makeover stories / comics for us to enjoy. And what I'm talking about the liquid play and the involvement of another artist's character is mainly the Ruby Walker character by minor alterations in the Demonica story series that I've talked about here on this channel as well. It's basically that Demonica has basically broken the shell, if you will, that Ruby was in, and Ruby has now become so attracted and enamored with these powers that the one part of the powers she's like the most, and she's become very obsessive with, addicted to, flirtatious with, and always looking forward to doing things with Demonica with, is the liquid play, where they become goo girls, they melt down, they evaporate, stuff like that, all kinds of crazy stuff. Now, continuing on, and I quote, Now if I was in Mr. Internet Man's shoes, the next step I would take would go for a straight up mystic makeover melting / liquid comic / story. And the reason I say that is basically because he's been teasing that a lot lately, and I'll get into that in a moment, but he's been teasing that a bit. And I quote, "The reason I would do this is because okay, let me continue. Let me reread that." And I quote, "The reason I would do this is because in one of the more recent pictures he uploaded onto his DeviantArt page, he basically kind of teased that. And what he did is he teased Veronica as Demonica, kind of, dressed in another alter ego called Demorphica, where basically the bottom half of her is all liquid-like, and he describes basically that she loves doing that when she can and all that, and once you tease something like that, in my opinion, you basically have no choice, from your own point of view, but to finally go through with it down the line in the future. But continuing on, and I quote, what was I? All right. And in addition to that, we know based on the collab crossover he's had with Minor Dash Alterations character Ruby Walker in the story series based on his character, which is called Demonica, I've talked about that, we know she likes to do that, and has become more encouraged to do it more often thanks to Ruby's obsession with it. Like I mentioned earlier, Minor Dash Alterations character Ruby Walker in the Demonica story series that they're doing, has become obsessed with that, and I think from a continuity standpoint it's rubbed off on Demonica / Veronica. Continuing on. So for me, this would logically be the next step for a Mystic Makeover webcomic. Now the question would be, how many pages should it be? And usually depending on the circumstance, it's, his pages usually don't go too long. But continuing on, and I quote, For something that would be basically Veronica / Demonica having fun, erotic / NFSW maybe, melting down into a liquid puddle and having all kinds of crazy fun with it, I would say perhaps a 14-page webcomic / story would do the trick. I mean, at 14 pages, it would give you more than enough space to work with and allow Veronica / Demonica to have all kinds of liquid, melty fun. But like above about RE0901, Mr. Internet Man's stories over at DeviantArt are stories you should definitely check out. And, getting on to why I would go that route of the melting liquid kind of thing, like I said, he has one picture, he has one picture over up on his DeviantArt page where she's like that, or at least teasing she's going to be like that. And I'm thinking, well, if you're going to tease it like that, and you're allowing in a collab with Minor Dash Alterations that to be put into play, especially with the Ruby Walker character, then why not go all the way with it? Why not finally just do it, get it out of your system, and see what happens? And I think eventually he's going to. I really do. He may not say he's going to do it right away, but I sense, like a lot of us, he's going to do it. Continuing on, and I quote, Number 3, Groblik stories. Groblik is a person that has an account, has a store on Amazon, as well as in places like Gumroad and all that, as well as DeviantArt. But Groblik, number 3, Groblik stories. Now, Groblik has been known here at DeviantArt, but mostly at Eka's portal for sharing his stories. Stories that usually deal with UB, you kind of get the idea what that is, or any kind of style of soft style vor out there. He's also been known to doing Slime Girl stories that involve a character being vored by a certain kind of slime girl, or a slime girl's PR area, and thus transforming into a certain kind of slime girl. And his recent stories is proof of that. His recent story is called Slime Girl His recent story is known as Slime Girl Shenanigans, and I would check it out if I was you. It's at DeviantArt. You can purchase the whole comic right now at Gumroad, or you can wait for it to simultaneously come out every few days individually at Eka's portal and at DeviantArt. Continuing on, and I quote, However, if I was in Groblik's shoes, the next step for me would be to do a Slime Girl sequel story, mainly to the most... that's what I'm saying here. Let me reread that. However, if I was in Groblik's shoes, the next step for me would be to do a Slime Girl story to his most recent one, which is Slime Girl Shenanigans. Continuing on, and I quote, Within this story, I'd have the two slime girls fuse into one slime girl. And a bit of spoilers, the girl that becomes a slime girl in one of his other stories prior has over time mastered these abilities she now has, even to the point that she could take somebody and turn them into a slime girl as well, which she does do in the Slime Girl Shenanigan story. And again, I suggest you guys check that out. Continue, but let me reread that, and I quote: "Within the story, I would have the two slime girls fuse into one slime girl, have the fused slime girl, absorb her quote unquote, absorb all her quote unquote girls into her body via either vor situation, and go from there." Continuing on, "Then, after they are absorbed, have them press their faces, hand, and feet in imprint/visage fashion, and have them pretend that they are either part of the fused girl now, or they are spirits of the fused slime girl's belly or certain other region. But besides that, I do recommend you check out Groblik's at Eka's Gumroad, or even at Amazon as well. Check out the stories, that is. Continuing on, let me get a drink of the Baja Blast, which they do have on sale now over at Nob Hill, which was a surprise to me. Continuing on though, and I quote: "Number 4, Ant-Zuras, or Ant-Zuras, Ant-Zuras, or AZ's Morphica stories." Now, this is the last one, number 4. AZ's Morphica stories. Just like Mr. Internet Man's quote-unquote Mystic Makeover series, with his Demonica character, AZ's Morphica character is basically the same way. Her stories are very much the same, to a point. The only difference is Veronica becoming Demonica is of mystical magic origin. I forgot to put origin in the wording, but you get the idea. Well, Karen, who is the person behind Morphica, becoming Morphica is more based on science. But besides that, their characters are pretty much. But besides that, let me reread that. But besides that, their characters pretty much have the same abilities. In other words, they can both shapeshift, liquefy, stuff like that. They have the same abilities. The only difference, like I said, is Veronica becoming Demonica is of mystical magic origin, while Karen becoming Morphica, or even her alter ego Scarlet, is of science origin. But continuing on, and I quote: "Now, if I was in AZ's shoes, the next step in a story would be to have Morphica go all out with her powers. And what I mean by quote-unquote all out is to have her use a full 3-day weekend to really let loose. Letting loose as in melting, evaporating, bubbling, turning into all kinds of crazy things like fruits, plants, and animate objects, etc. And, just go from there. To me, that would be the next step I would take when it would come to a new Morphica story if I was in AZ's shoes. Anyway, the reason I decided to type this up, or in this case, read it to you on video, was to kind of explain from a reader/viewer's point of view of what the next steps I would honestly take when it comes to making some new stories for these characters. But in the end, I do recommend checking them all out over at DeviantArt, Echo's Portal, Gumroad, and even Amazon. Because these are stories I know will definitely get your attention. And that's about it. And again, you could just see it from here if you want to. This is the pages, just so you guys know that this is what I read off. But yeah, to me, those are the situations I would go in, honestly. I mean, I would honestly go in those kind of situations because I think they would be worth seeing, in my opinion. And again, it's just what I would do. It's just what I would do if I was them. I'm not saying they'll do it. I'm not saying they'll take suggestions. The suggestions I put in there, as something they want to do. It's just something I would do if I was in their position. Like if I could do a web comic like Mr. Internet Man does, or if I could do a SFM a 3D CGI like comic like Ari does, excuse me, or something like what AZ does, or even Groblik does, you know, I would do it. I would instantly be like, okay, I'm going to do this now because I'm getting out of the way. I would do it. That would be my thing. Or I plan it out saying, okay, like if I'm Groblik, I'd be like, okay, I did the Slime Girl shenanigans. I know people are gonna love it, so I'm gonna do the sequel, and this is what I got to plan for the sequel. That's what I would do. You know, same thing with, you know, Mr. Internet Man's Mystic Makeover series, stuff like that as well. But anyway, though, guys, I just wanted to do this on-screen read of the essay that I put on DeviantArt to show you guys that I do type up stuff and read off it as well. For those that wonder, you know, why I don't do that, I do, and this is just an example of me doing it. So let me know what your thoughts are, though, down below. Comment if you like. I'd love to hear from each and every one of you. And like the video, and I'm out.